Welcome back. All right, so a bit of a tradition on the channel, ranking number one draft picks. Yep. So number one draft picks is going to be from 2006 through 2021. So graduating from this board, Sidney Crosby. Last year, Sidney Crosby was number one when I was ranking number one draft picks from 2005 through 2020. Now we're doing 2006 through 2021. So all the best to him. I'm wearing Buffalo. There's two Buffalo number one draft picks on this board. There are a bunch of Edmonton Oilers number one draft picks as well. The next one that's going to age out is Erik Johnson, who was the 2006 pick. So next summer when I do this, it'll be from 2007 through to 2022. It is tough to do some of the ranking of this because some careers are just getting started. That being said, number 16 on the board, Edmonton Oilers pick from, and people are going to know exactly where I'm going with this, 2012, and that is Yakupov. Fail for nail. They did, and then nail failed. I think I'm going to go with the purple from here. So the blue will just be for Yakupov. There was a lot of hype around Yakupov before he started playing, and he had a pretty good rookie year, and then it just sort of petered out from there. So, yeah, Yakupov is on this board. And the funny thing is that 6 more years, he'll still probably be number 16 on the board, I would think. I'd be very surprised if another number one draft pick threatens to go below Nail Yakupov. And of course, at this point in time, it's not like Yakupov's going to come back over and play in the National Hockey League. So there's that. Number 15 on the board, and the same spot as last year as well, the number 2020 first round pick, and that's Lafreniere. And I feel kind of bad because I think Lafreniere, good player. I do. I like Lafreniere. Stop laughing. I do. I like Lafreniere. I think there's a good future there. I think he's part of a very successful kid line. That being said, this is ranking the number one draft picks. And so Lafreniere, in terms of number one draft picks, he ends up being 15th on this board. Really, he's been, I think, good. But again, has he lived up to the hype? No. I can't make the argument that he's lived up to the hype. Number 14, also the same spot as last year. And again, this is the last year that we're going to have Erik Johnson on the board. So Erik Johnson's at 14. Good, solid career. He exits the Colorado Avalanche this season. But for Johnson, he got his Stanley Cup last year with Colorado. Good, solid defenseman throughout his career. Honestly, really solid defenseman through most of his career. And yet, again, we're talking about the number one draft picks. So Johnson ends up 14th on the board. Number 13 on this board goes to, and we're going to the Buffalo Sabres. I'm just saying going back because I've talked about the fact I'm wearing a Sabres jersey. So this is a player who I think is going to move up the board. Debuting. So here, I'll put new. It's always fun when it's like, hey, new on the chart. Owen Power. Owen Power, the 2021 number one draft pick. And I would already put him ahead of Johnson, Lafreniere, and Yakupov. Power had a very good rookie season. I think he's going to be a star defenseman in the NHL. And the fact that you've got Rasmus Dahlin, you've got Owen Power. The future's pretty bright for the Buffalo Sabres. You've got a lot of good scoring there as well. It really is a matter of, so who's going to be that starting goaltender? Who's going to get them into the playoffs and make them dangerous? Will it be Levi? And if it is, great. They've got their goaltender. If you're not sure it's going to be Levi yet, if you don't have faith in Luukkonen, and if you're on the fence with Comrie or however you view it, then that might be one spot they want to shore up. But yeah, Owen Power should only get better this year. Number 12 on the board. I went back and forth on this one a little bit. So the last time out, Hall was number 11. He actually drops to number 12. He was a 2010 number one draft pick. So that's Taylor Hall for the Edmonton Oilers. The Taylor-Tyler argument that was going on at the time. Do you take Taylor Hall or Tyler Seguin? And both of them have had good careers, but have they lived up to all the hype early on? Probably not. With Hall, of course, he did have a heart-winning season in New Jersey, but since then things have kind of fallen off. Now he's in Chicago. He's bounced around the league a bit. And so, yeah, I think Hall at this point, I'm going to put him at 12, which means at 11, and moving up 2 spots from last season. That's right. Also an Oilers draft pick from 2011. Nugent Hopkins. Ryan Nugent Hopkins is a really solid two-way forward, and he's excellent defensively. But this year, career year in points, so his career, it seems like he's becoming more productive, while Taylor Hall's production has dropped off. So, yeah, at this point, I would put Nugent Hopkins ahead of Hall. I believe that was an argument last season as well. In that video was people saying Nugent Hopkins belonged ahead of Hall. If you were of that mind, there you go. So, three Oilers magnets on the board already. They did have some number one draft picks, 2010, 2011, and 2012, but none of them are in the top 10. So they were getting those number one draft picks. Was it making a huge difference in transforming the organization? Not really. Really, that transformation started when they traded away Hall, and they made it clear that losing was no longer going to be accepted. And whether Hall had anything to do with that aura of being okay with losing or not, the Oilers have been really, really good since then. All right, so number 10 on the board, and dropping 2 spots from last year, because of course I went back and checked where I had everybody last year. From 2014, Aaron Ekblad. Now, Aaron Ekblad, excellent defenseman. In his own right, Ekblad's an excellent defenseman, and if not for injuries, I think he'd have a higher profile. If he didn't play in Florida, if he played for an original 6 team or a Canadian team, I think he'd have a higher profile. Florida fans will tell you how important Ekblad is to that blue line. He is a key guy. And him being out to start the year for them this coming season, that could absolutely spell trouble for the Florida Panthers out of the gate. I think that's why they've been stockpiling defensemen in the offseason. Just, get as many guys in there as possible to back things until Montour and Ekblad come back. But, yeah, Ekblad's still top 10. Really, in all honesty, I think that's a respectable spot to be. Number 9, and moving up from, he was number 12 last year, and he was the number 1 draft pick in 2018, and that's Rasmus Dahlin. So Dahlin moving up is related to the fact that he had an excellent season. He really did. There might be a Norris Trophy in the future for either Power, for Dahlin, or maybe both. Why not both? One of my favorite memes on the internet is, why not both? So, yeah, Dahlin, excellent season for him this year. Started off really, really strong. He wasn't going to keep that up. But he started off with what would have been a record-breaking season. Still ends up with a season near a point per game. And again, with Power and Dahlin, this is a team that's going to be dangerous in Buffalo with the right pieces being added in the offseason. So now we get into the top half. So we're into the top half. And at number 8... from the New Jersey Devils, and moving up 2 spots from where he was last year, the number 1 draft pick in 2017, Nico Hischier. Hischier is developing into one of the better two-way / defensive forwards in the NHL. The scoring is there as well. And if Bergeron retires, Hischier could end up racking up some wins for himself. That's Selke as long as Bergeron's playing. Bergeron will win Selkes. That's just reality. But once Bergeron's out of the league and then you're looking for the next guy, maybe it's Hischier, right? So as long as he can stay healthy, and I say that because Couturier looked like he might be the next guy, and then injuries got the best of him for the last couple of years. But if Hischier can stay healthy, no reason he can't win himself a Selke. And once you've won that first, you might end up winning 2, 3, 4, and suddenly people are talking about Hall of Fame. But not wanting to get ahead of myself here, I will say this, the New Jersey Devils, a team that looks pretty darn solid going into this coming season. And Nico Hischier is a big part of the reason why. And next on the board, the 2019 number 1 draft pick. So New Jersey's on twice in a row. And that, of course, is Jack Hughes. I need to make sure I have the J in there, because otherwise people might be like, well, which Hughes? Because there's Luke Hughes as well. Jack Hughes is a superstar in the National Hockey League. He is going to get 100-point seasons. I'm saying that multiple. He should have multiple 100-point seasons. He's a bona fide star. So we talk a lot about McDavid. And McDavid feels like he is this generation's Gretzky, this generation's Crosby, Lemieux. But Jack Hughes could be this generation's Sakic, this generation's Yzerman. The guy who's not the guy, but the guy who might very well be a player who leads his team to glory in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, you're going to have those megastars that are the top of the line guys, and then you have guys that just win. They produce very well, but come playoff time, they're winners, and Jack Hughes is still going through the process of learning that. But I like his chances. I think Jack Hughes is going to be a pretty good player. So, yeah, 2019 Jack Hughes ends up number 7. Last year I had Hughes at 9th. So, yeah, he moves up as well. Number 6, moving up one spot from last year. So this is directly in relation to Sidney Crosby being off the list. From 2009, John Tavares. Now, New Jersey fans will say, well, could we put Jack Hughes ahead of Tavares? At this point, I'm putting Tavares ahead of Hughes looking over their careers. But yes, next year at this time, if Hughes gets 100 points and if Tavares shows some issues, or if he's, 75 points, 70 points, yeah, then I'll have Hughes jump past Tavares. But at this point, I would still have Tavares at 6 and Hughes at 7. If you want to reverse them, go for it. No problem. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But yeah, I would still, personally for myself, I would still have Tavares at number 6. But it's just a barely ahead of Hughes. So number 5 on the board, and dropping one spot from last year, and we'll get into why. Number 5 from 2013, Nathan McKinnon. So Nathan McKinnon, a star player. Yep. Stanley Cup, absolutely. 100-point seasons. Yep, he's been able to do that. McKinnon's been absolutely fantastic. I've looked at my countdown from last year, and I have changed my mind on McKinnon, not because I'm diminishing McKinnon by dropping him down a little bit. There were a couple of players he was ahead of that I'm looking at now and saying, I can't, over their careers, I can't have McKinnon ahead of those two players. So that's just me. It's just my opinion. If people are like, no, I don't like that, well, next year it may change again. It may change back. Remember, only Johnson is leaving this list, and then we'll have the 2022 number 1 draft pick on the list as well. But yeah, so McKinnon's number 5 from 2013. So number 4 from 2008. And last year, I had Stamkos at 6. So yes, I have Stamkos now ahead of McKinnon. He has 2 Stanley Cups. Stamkos had a very good year and seems to be getting better with age. He's in a contract year as well, so he may put up a lot of points this year. If he doesn't sign an extension with Tampa, he might be heavily motivated this year to have a really good season. A, puts the pressure on Tampa Bay to keep him around and sign him to that extension. And B, if he did go to market, if he has a great year, he might end up with a pretty strong contract. Shorter term, obviously, at this point in his career. But he's playing for more money, and sometimes guys are really motivated by playing for more money. So I have Stamkos at number 4. At number 3, also, jumping past McKinnon. And last year I had him at 5th on the board. But from 2007, Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, of course, currently an unrestricted free agent, coming off of hip surgery, and he wants to be 100% healthy before he signs anything. My guess is he wants to see where he's at, like what he's going to be able to do. A lot of talk about his production falling off this year. I would answer that with, well, clearly he was dealing with an injury. And then when I say that, somebody would answer with, right, and it's a hip injury and it might bother him the rest of his career. I would answer with, touche. And that's how you argue with yourself. So Patrick Kane, number 3 for Chicago. And again, so I've just dropped McKinnon below Stamkos and Kane. That's all I've done. Outside of that, a lot of this stays very similar to last year. But yeah, I'll have Patrick Kane at 3rd. He does have 3 Stanley Cup rings. Obviously, his game in New York wasn't the same as it had been previous seasons. But again, I feel like with Kane, if he can come back healthy and if he signs with the right team, I think his production should come up. I'm not saying it's going to get back to where it was 5 years ago. I'm not crazy. I had myself tested. But I do think that he can get back to near a point per game status. I think 65 to 70 points is quite possible over a full season if he can play a full season, which is, of course, up in the air. Which means at number 2, and from the 2016 draft, here you go, Leafs fans, Austin Matthews. So a lot of debate about Matthews and how much money he's going to be worth, and we'll probably get a contract signing from him over the next few weeks. But for Matthews, yeah, I'll put him at number 2. I think that the 60 goals he had last year meant that when he put up 40 this year, there was a lot of people just shrugging their shoulders and saying, I don't know what happened to him, something off. If a player has a 40-goal season and we look at that and say, he just didn't seem to be himself this year, that tells you how good he is and how high the bar is. So Matthews, to me, is a guy that anything less than 50 goals is seen as a disappointment. I can't say that of anybody else on the board. Is there anybody else on the board that if they don't score 50 goals next year, we're going to throw our arms in the air and go, something's wrong here? So Matthews has raised the bar that high. And it's tough when you've done that, but when you hit a 60-goal season, yeah, people are going to pay attention. And that 60-goal season is going to get him paid. I get the feeling that $13.5 million cap hit that's out there is rumored to be his number for the extension with the Leafs. I think that's based on the idea that, hey, he's hit 60 before he could hit 60 again. Which means that number one, to the surprise of no one and it's 2015. I'm just double checking. I know it's 2015. Just at my age, you've always got to double check everything. Or triple check before you leave the house. But Connor McDavid. This league it's Connor McDavid's league. Back in 2015 when he was drafted, Connor McDavid clearly was going to be the guy. There was a lot of debate at the time about whether or not he would succeed Sidney Crosby. Definitely debate before he played in the NHL of how can we talk about this guy being great. He hasn't played a game yet, which is true. Right now we have Connor Bedard coming in with almost as much hype as McDavid had. And that comment's out there. And it's accurate. He hasn't played in the NHL yet. We don't know what we're going to get with Bedard. But we also don't know what we might get from Slavkovsky this season and where he might be when he hits the board next year. But I get the feeling he won't catch McDavid. And I get the feeling that next year at this time, I will be doing a video where Connor McDavid, once again, is the number one pick. And with the fact that it's 16 years that I use, it'll be quite a while before McDavid would be off the board. And the real question then becomes one of 3, 4, 5 years from now. Is he still number one? Or could Bedard end up being the number one on this board at some point? And there's the debate that I pass along to all you fine people of the internet. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.